Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It is Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord. Excited to be back here. One of the things so I'll kind of just jump right into it. One of the things that I think is really interesting to me is the question that I'm probably the least often asked, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised that I'm not asked this question a whole lot more. Is what do you think is the most important skill a landlord should have? I never get asked that question. I'm maybe in 20 years, I might have been asked it twice, maybe. So I never get asked that question. And so I was just kind of thinking about it this morning, and I always ask. That's a question I always ask. That's a question I always ask other landlords, certainly ones that are bigger than me. Is what do you think is the most important skill or the most important thing that you did to get to that next level? That's one of the things that I ask pretty much everybody. Um, and it's perspective because everybody always has a different upbringing in the business. Everybody always has different skills. Everybody always has their view of things, how they look at things, and what that means. And so I'm always interested in their perspective. And so it's shocking to me that I don't get asked that question, quite frankly, a whole lot more often. That being said, yeah, so now I remember last week. Thank you, Phil, for reminding me, actually. I felt awful last week. I don't still feel awesome this week. So I'm finally breaking down. I'm finally going to go to the doctors because holy cow, it's just been like I got sick and then I was better for a couple of days. And it was this whole like congested, blah, blah, blah awfulness. And so I think that, so yeah, so now I'm just finally relenting and I'm going to go to the doctors. So it's been upper respiratory and the whole, so it's just like, maybe I had an infection and I just didn't get antibiotics or whatever, who knows? But anyway, I digress. So I think it's really funny to me that the thing that I think that I don't get asked the most often is, or ever, I get asked the least often is, what's the most important skill as a landlord? And so I saw Bruce Vonk put in here people skills. That's definitely really important. But I think that people skills are very important, but I don't think it's the top one. I think the top one, you guys that are watching, we got 23 people watching already in the first couple minutes. You guys tell me, what do you think is the most important skill that a landlord can have, and most kind of important approach or attitude that a landlord can have? I think that largely will help you put your business in perspective. I think it will help you, if you have any level of a victim mentality, okay, landlording is not for you. It's just not. Your tenants will chew you up and spit you out. It's not an easy business every single day, and sometimes you have days where you have 4 calls and they're all emergencies. And some weeks you have a few calls and there are no emergencies or text messages or whatever. GW Paris, humility. Yep. Kenny A, constructive communication. Yep. Business skills. Yep. Those are all important. Yep. As a real estate investor, networking. Yep. That's very important. Give and take. That's very good. Yep. Give and take, I think, is the closest so far. Good job, Key. Key is in, oh shit, I'm a landlord now. What? He's in our boot camp doing a fantastic job. Integrity, very important. You must have integrity in how you work with your tenants. I totally agree. Don't tell them somebody's coming if they're not coming. Don't tell them something's going to get fixed unless you have a plan to get it fixed. Don't misrepresent things. Just tell it the way it is. It's a far easier way than the right way to live life. Landlord, ability to find and place quality tenants. That's a very important skill. KIP SOS. I think that one's the closest is attitude. So the concept or the idea, the thing that's the most important to what we do is you better get ready to pivot. You never know. You have to be ready to pivot. As a landlord, the most important thing, the most important skill you can have is flexibility. It's the most important skill you can have, an attitude that you can have. You have to have a great attitude towards it. And so that's where attitude really isn't wrong. It certainly is part of that overall equation. The overall equation is flexibility. We're doing a rehab, and the framer that we had walk it, I said, hey, this is what I want to do. And he came in and he said, yeah, that's not going to be your best way. And I was like, nah, come on. We've done it like 100 times that way. He goes, yeah, on those other buildings, you probably could have, but on this one. So this one is the project that I walk with Millennial Mike. Mike, good morning. Saw the super chat. Thanks so much. Feel better. I appreciate it. Phil Nealon, thank you for the super chat as well. And I'm always happy to do the show. I was bummed last week. I just did not feel up to it. And I knew, and my students get my best. So boot camp was that afternoon. We still did 2 hours in boot camp, which is a lot of fun always. But the most important thing is really attitude about it. It's attitude and flexibility. You got to be flexible. You're going to get tenants that call and think that their problem is a top of the world problem. I had somebody freaking out about a chip in a countertop. It gets harder from here. It does. It gets harder from here. So you have to, people skills was mentioned. You have to have good people skills. You have to be able to communicate properly. All these answers are great answers, but let's kind of boil them up to overall how we need to feel about this, right? People are people, and people are paying for a service. Now, does it mean that they can get rude? They're not allowed to get rude just because they're not getting what they want or they're not getting the answer that they feel they should be getting. But they can still notify you of the problem, and you can't be annoyed that there's another problem that they're notifying you of. When they start to get nitpicky, then we start to have a conversation, which is when you signed the lease and when you moved in, the place looked the way that it looked. I told you that I was going to do these things. I did those things. I actually even have a period in my lease where I say, if you don't notify me of it in the first 5 days, it's not a problem, right? Unless it's like a water thing or blah, 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 right? So that person's then, one of these people is considering to basically just light me up in the maintenance portal that we set up. And I'm like, I never said that I was going to rebuild the unit, especially while you live there. Like a chip in the counter. Okay, it's a chip in the counter. There's nothing I can do about it except for replace your countertop. But I'm not doing that for you. Not because, big surprise, they're also not a market tenant. And so when I talk about tenants, there's really two kinds of tenants. There's a market tenant, and then there's a non-market tenant. A non-market tenant isn't paying market rent, and they are usually a subsidized tenant, whether it's housing or some public assistance or something. And we've done the numbers, and I have a video coming out this week that is going to make your minds collapse, literally implode on themselves, because I went through all of the numbers for all the public assistance and for all of the emergency rental assistance program dollars that we got. And I'm going to walk you through every single piece of it. The entire portfolio that we did for rental assistance, I'm going to walk through the entire thing. And the numbers are quite telling. So I think that you guys did a great job at hitting on a lot of the items that we talk about when it comes to, sure, screening tenants and good and good people skills and good communication. Those are all really important. The most important is you need to be flexible. You need to be able to pivot. You need to be able to not take things personally. You got to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And anytime I'm struggling in a situation, I try and put myself in the other person's shoes, right? Like the idiot crash bros. If I know nothing about the market and all I do is watch television and all I do is read a graph that shows an arrow spiking downward, I'm going to think that it's the imminent collapse of society. It's because I don't know what I'm talking about. It's because I don't have experience. It's because I don't know how to interpret those numbers. So that's really what comes into play, is people not understanding what they're reading. I can read the same chart that they read, but because I understand what it actually means, and because I've actually done the work, because I'm actually on the ground, not actually showing a vacant building because I cherry picked the worst development I could find, or because, oh, you just don't understand. They're keeping all these numbers from us. Okay, if you got a tin hat conspiracy theory, that if you don't believe one thing, you got to throw it all out. If they're conspiracy theorying one thing, then they're conspiracy theorying everything. So you can't just take, oh, well, I believe them here, but I don't believe them here. And I believe this, but I don't believe that. If it's a grand conspiracy, it's all lies. But again, the most important skill that we can have as landlords is flexibility and attitude. It's really understanding that the tenant, we're curating an experience for a customer. And if you're a tenant, you don't like being called a customer, I don't care. That's the way I look at it. I'm running my business because that's what this is, a business. I'm creating and curating an experience for you. And when something doesn't work, you want it fixed, and you want it fixed in a timely manner. Most people think that they just pick up the phone or they call the bat before they send a text message. And it's like, I've got somebody out there in 3 seconds because I own the world. It doesn't work that way. I have to wait my turn in line, which means you have to wait your turn in line. Now, the good news is that my turn in line goes far faster than your turn in line because I'm not just one of. I am one of a few people with a given contractor that he makes a priority, but it doesn't mean that they can drop everything that they're doing to come out and do this. So I would really talk to you guys and tell you that the most important thing that you can have really is flexibility. You have to be flexible. I had a tenant. Here's an example. I had a tenant that had been a tenant for years. They'd always paid. They had come off assistance. They had a month that they didn't pay. And I said, okay, let me know. He said, I get my tax return next month. We've had the tax return thing work out for us a number of times. We've had it not work out a couple of times. But because he's been a long-term tenant, I gave him that flexibility. And I just said, okay, I understand. Now, what I will do, or what I had done, is I said, okay, then it was 2 months. And then he was like, but I get my check back here and I'll be able to pay. So, okay, sounds good. Great. So I allowed that. And then something happened where part of that money was taken by the government. I don't know how it happened, but it was. He couldn't pay the rent. So now he was behind the 2 months and we were a couple days away from another month. What am I supposed to do then at that point? Well, I knew that he was a tile guy. I had some tile work I needed done. I said, all right, go look at this tile job. I said, let's find a way to work it out and work it off. He's like, all right, I really appreciate the opportunity. I'd seen his work. I'd seen his work firsthand because when I bought the building, I said, oh, who tiled this? He goes, oh, I did all the tile work. Tile work was beautiful. And he was a tile guy. He had a tile van and the whole 9 yards. He's a tile guy. I had some tile work that needed doing. I said, okay, walk the project. He walks the project and he goes, okay, this is what I would charge for that. And I said, well, that's what you would charge retail, getting paid cash, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, well, yeah, that's what I would charge. I said, okay, so think of a number for me. I said, let's work on the number. So we work on the number. We get it down to what I believe is fair and equitable. And I said, I'm going to take that number and I'm going to apply it directly towards your rent. And I want the job done by this time. And I will agree to pay you this much, and this much will go towards rent. And this much I'll pay you out of pocket. I had to pivot. I wasn't going to get that money. I could take him to court. I could do the eviction. And when it was all said and done, it was going to be over the 30 days. So it would have gone 2 months, then a third month, and then a fourth month he would have qualified for. It would have been like $7,000 in rent. More. No, about 7,000. It's about $7,000 a month in rent. What was my option? My option was follow through that process, take him to court, do all that work, and sue him in small claims court, and then get a judgment against him. And then he can pay me $50 a month or $100 a month or $150 a month until eternity, for eternity. No, hard pass. So what was my job? My job was to be flexible. My job was to be creative. My job was to make sure I got made as whole as I possibly could have. So I put him in the project. He just finished. The work was good. I would say is very good. It wasn't perfect, but it was very good. Little things. But now I got my tile work done. The places are done. The job came out good or came out well. And now we're in the position where he's moving out, moves out at the end of this month. And I don't have a $7,000 judgment against somebody that isn't worth a whole lot. I don't want to get paid $200 a month for eternity. Not interested. So that's just one example of the type of flexibility that we have. Now, if you go down that path like I did, you have to make sure that they're skilled in what they say they're skilled in. You have to make sure that you have it written out with exactly what the cost is going to be. And you have to make sure that there's some sort of a timeline associated with it, because if not, the deal is not worth the paper it's printed on. That's what I did. I'm not making that recommendation for you, but I'm giving you an example of how you have to have that flexibility, where if you have that flexibility, you are likely putting yourself in a much better position to not get stuck holding the tab on some big thing like this. So again, the most important skill I believe that we can have as landlords is flexibility and, just generally speaking, an attitude. People aren't out to get you. People are not attacking you unless they are, because you're not doing the things you should be doing. And I think that having a good attitude about it is just understanding that they don't know. They, tenants, never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever, ever put themselves in your shoes where they're like, you know what? Lumberjack has 137 other units and he has 400 tenants. I'm sure that other people have some other things going on as well. What? Enlightenment? No, not there. And so the key is understanding, put yourself in their shoes, let them see it through, try and see it through their eyes. If you see it through their eyes, they don't feel that way. Their problem is the only problem as far as they're concerned. And that's where you have to be flexible and understanding in working out, communicating well, having a good attitude, making adjustments. But you also, most importantly, again, you have to have flexibility. When that contractor walked that, I didn't finish that story. Sorry, a little bit spacey still. When that contractor walked that project and he said, this is what I'm recommending you do based on the fact that you're residing the entire house. He said, this is what I think you should do. And I knew exactly what he was going to say before he said it, but I just knew it was going to cost me thousands of dollars. So I really wasn't thrilled about it. But I walked through it with him and I just said, it's the right way to do it. He was a good communicator. I had to have flexibility to say, we have to do this a better way. The way that we've done it in the past worked in all those scenarios. However, this is something special. This is something different. We should reframe all of these windows. We're going to then be able to put in the most beautiful, large, brand new construction windows. They're going to be absolutely amazing. And so the important thing is, again, it's flexibility. Be flexible, be understanding, have a good attitude. All the things you wrote are all things that are really important to us running our businesses. But be flexible. The universe isn't out to get you. Your tenants aren't out to get you. Really what it is you just got to be flexible. Stuff's going to come up. Chaos management. The more units you have, the more stuff will come up. Dion goes on vacation. He broke his record this month for how much time he had to spend landlording because he had to have replaced 3 refrigerators. And that's a given. That's a given that when you go on vacation, you have stuff that you have to fix and take care of right away. That's how it goes. But what's he going to do? He's set up his business properly. He had to replace the 3 refrigerators and he replaced the 3 refrigerators. And that was it. Didn't have to be mad about it. Didn't have to be upset about it. Didn't have to worry about it. It's what had to be done. You got to be flexible. So we do what we can in our time, making sure that we're building our business, planning our business, managing our business the best we possibly can. But at the end of the day, you got to be flexible. Stuff's going to happen and you got to be flexible. You got to be malleable. You got to look at it and have perspective. Recognize that it just is what it is. Stuff breaks. It's a house. I even tell tenants, hey, stuff's going to break. All you have to do is let me know. Let me know and we'll do what we can to take care of it in a timely manner. And anyway, that's what I think. That's what I think I have to say about the matter. And Phil, I want to get to this comment right away. What I get out of that is framers are awesome. Framers are awesome. What's really amazing is as you guys do more units, as you guys rehab more units, you'll recognize the skills of the people that you have. And I really appreciate highly skilled people. We have highly skilled tile guys and highly skilled framers and highly skilled sheetrock guys. And I appreciate because I see the difference in them versus some of the other people that I talk to and some of the other projects that I walk. So yeah, it's really important. Get skilled people, and the cheap can become expensive.